Hello, welcome to the channel. I'm Carl from Planet 40k. Today we're going to be moving on to part 3, discussing the new 9th edition core rule changes that have been released by Games Workshop. So in the previous video, we spoke about changes to the rules in the movement phase and the psychic phase. If you haven't seen the video, there'll be a link in the description below. Today we're going to be talking specifically about the changes in the shooting phase, the charge phase, the fight phase, and the morale phase. So jumping straight in with the first change of the shooting phase, firstly, only infantry units now suffer the -1 penalty to hit for moving and firing heavy weapons. So your bikers, monsters and vehicles can now move and shoot without a penalty. That's a big bonus to pretty much all armies across the board, although for my Tyranids there's not that much heavy weaponry. Only some of the monsters get the double shots if they remain stationary, so that kind of cancels that rule out. Unfortunately, those Devastator squads still get their -1 modifier, as they're obviously infantry. Secondly, a new weapon type has been added to the rulebook called blast weapons. This weapon usually asks you to roll either a d6 or sometimes 2d3. If the unit you're targeting is 6 or more, then you get the minimum of 3 hits, even if you roll a 1 or a 2. If you roll a 5, then you're going to get a 5, not the 3. If the target squad has 11 or more models, then you just get the maximum shot. So instead of rolling the d6, you're just going to be getting 6. It's pretty nasty towards horde units such as cultists or hormagaunts, but it's a good addition. Previously, those weapons didn't really feel like they were doing anything against a horde unit, and you probably roll sort of a 3 or a 4, and then you need to wound, so the blast didn't quite feel like a blast, so now it should. There's a new rule in addition to this: big guns never tire, which basically means monsters and vehicles can now shoot even if they're engagement range of another unit. It's a -1 modifier if they're using heavy weapons, and you cannot fire blast weapons while in combat. However, they can target other units that are outside of the combat, but they must firstly clear the units that they're in engagement range with. If you do target somebody that's not in the engagement range and you don't clear off that unit, then those bullets are going to be wasted. Lookout Sir has now made its comeback in this edition with a little tweak. In previous edition, you can target characters with 10 or more wounds, and any characters with less you could not target unless they were the nearest visible enemy unit. This rule was abused in the last edition. You could literally leave your warlord in the open but throw some random units that are slightly closer in range, but not necessarily anywhere near him, and it prevented your warlord being targeted. So now the character can be targeted unless they're within 3 inches of a friendly monster or vehicle unit, or they are within 3 inches of a unit that has 3 or more models in the squad. Okay, so the next big set of changes to the phase: an unmodified roll of 1 to hit and wound will always fail, and an unmodified hit or wound roll of 6 will always pass. Furthermore, a hit roll or wound roll can never be modified by more than -1 or +1. Even if you manage to inflict 3 different types of -1 modifiers to your opponent's hit roll, the maximum you can actually give them is a -1. This is really going to boost a few armies like Orcs, who've already got a pretty bad ballistic skill, and it's going to nerf armies such as Eldar, who can give quite a lot of different modifiers to your opponent's hit and wound rolls. Okay, moving on to the charge phase. There's been a huge nerf to charging units now. You've now got to get into engagement range of all targeted units that you've declared a charge against. So no more declaring a charge on multiple units and only reaching the first one and then piling into the second or third ones. So if you declare multiple units, you've got to reach them all. We previously spoke about this next change in the movement phase, but charging up ruins is now not required, as engagement range is now considered both a 1-inch horizontal and a 5-inch vertical range. So as long as you're within those perimeters, you can charge in. Previously, you either needed to be charging up the entire vertical length, or you just couldn't charge because you couldn't fit your models up a ruins. So now you can get in there. Okay, so there's another huge change, which is there's now no standard Overwatch. No more rolling 20 odd dice to try and get 6s for nothing to then happen, which is fantastic, because it was such a huge waste of time doing those rolls over and over and not get anywhere. Tau can still fire Overwatch as normal. Every other army can pay the CP to use a stratagem to give them an Overwatch shot. Like, if you've got, say, a squad of burner boys and you're being charged, you're going to want to use your Overwatch because they've got auto-hitting burners. So you're definitely going to pay the CP to do that. So moving on to the fight phase. Previously, models within an inch of another model that was within an inch of an enemy model could fight. this has now been halved. So you now need to be within half an inch of a friendly model, that is within half an inch of an enemy model. Effectively, this prevents the third line of your squad in combat being able to fight. So you're going to be getting less models in the fight. It's more realistic because you can't be, say, swinging a power fist at someone who's like 3 meters in front of you while your friends are in front of you as well. This is going to really hurt those horde armies, though, getting those extra attacks in. Okay, going on to another change in this phase. The order of fighting has changed now. So previously, you did all your charging units fought first, and then the player whose turn it was got to choose a unit to fight that's already in a fight. And then after they've fought, your opponent chooses one, then you choose one, so on and so forth. Now, you finish off all your charged units, your opponent gets to choose the next fight. So a squad that's already in a fight, your opponent's going to be picking first. And this is pretty huge because say you've got, you charge in with like 20 Gene Stealers, for example, and you fail to kill the squad that you're up against in your turn. However, on your opponent's go, you can choose the Gene Stealers to fight first after all the charges have been made. So you almost get 2 swings at the bat. So it's a huge buff to combat units. But if you look at it in another way, like imagine you charge in with Abaddon the Despoiler up against, say, a Blood Angel Smash Captain. It's a big brutal fight. It could go either way. If Abaddon goes first, because he charged, and he doesn't kill the Smash Captain, the Smash Captain swings back. And let's say he doesn't kill Abaddon. Previously, the Smash Captain wouldn't mind so much because he knows on his go, he's going first. But now, you can choose Abaddon in your opponent's turn, effectively. So you're getting 2 swings. So it gives the advantage to the charger. Okay, moving on to the morale phase. We've touched upon a few things in the previous video with this series. The morale phase has changed. So unit coherency checks now happen in this phase. Any model not in unit coherency will simply be destroyed. And this can have a domino effect on other models in the unit until you've gone down to 5 models or you're in coherency. Also, the morale test itself has been altered. So ones will now always pass. No matter how many casualties you've taken, you will always pass. So the way it works is you still roll your d6 and you still add it to the number of casualties you've lost in that unit. And if it exceeds your leadership, then you have simply failed. So once you've failed, one model in that unit instantly flees. So you instantly lose 1. You then have to take what's called a combat attrition test for every single model left in the unit. Any ones that are rolled, they will also flee. If the squad takes the test while it's at half strength, then 1s or 2s will result in fleeing models. So previously in the 8th edition, if say you had 30 cultists and 16 dies, you'd have to roll a d6, and let's say you rolled a 3. So it'll be 16 plus 3, which is a 19. So obviously that goes well over their leadership, and that would have just wiped out the rest of the squad. Whereas in this edition, it's designed to only lose 1/6 of the remaining units. So using the same example with rolling a 3, that will make 19 again, but you now have to roll on the remainder of the guys, you roll a d6 and any 1s flee. So you're only really going to be getting approximately 4 more casualties rather than the entire unit being wiped. So this is huge for those larger units with low saves and low leaderships. It doesn't matter how many models you lose, the test should only kill 1/6 or 1/3 depending on if they're half strength. And not only that, you can simply just roll a 1 on the morale test itself and just pass instantly. So that's a huge buff to those units. So to summarize the phases that we've just been over, I'm loving the fact that monsters can now shoot in combat. That's a huge plus for my shooty kind effects that I use, and also my hive tyrants. Even the exocrines now that are getting tied up, they can still do some serious damage. The blast weapons, I really like that, even though I shouldn't like that because it's going to hinder my army, but I like the fact that blast weapons now feel like a blast weapons. It's a lot more accurate to what it should be doing in the game. A lot of people in the old edition were just sort of throwing those kind of weapons at bigger targets like vehicles, which that's not really what they're designed to do. So that's going to be a better change. I'm really liking that the engagement range rule is now 5 inches vertical. So I can get anyone into combat without having to climb up many terrain and fit in bases onto ruins, and I can actually get hold of those those units that are hiding away. The new fight system is going to take a few games to get used to, I think, because that whole within half an inch of another that's within half an inch, I do like it. It's more realistic, even though I'm going to get in less attacks. But now you can get to swing on your opponent's go as well, like before he does, which is a nice little buff. So swings and roundabouts there with the fight phase. The morale phase is going to be interesting to say the least, because there's going to be so much more survivors now. You're not going to just be losing squads just instantly. So you really need to start finishing off your opponents and not relying on the morale. Although we didn't really rely on it against Marines anyway. So anyway, if you've enjoyed the video, drop us a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe. Hope to see you again soon.